Welcome to the May 10th, 2022 City of Broussard Council meeting. Please silence your cell phones, and if anyone from the audience would like to comment on an item listed on the agenda, please fill out a blue card located in the back of the room and turn it into our city clerk. Each speaker will be given a maximum of 5 minutes. Please rise for the pledge. Councilman Gary, would you lead us in a prayer?
We, the members of the Broussard City Council, beg of thee, Almighty God, to enlighten our minds so that our work will be just and fair in all things. Give us the courage and strength to fulfill our duties according to the laws of the land, and fulfilling also thy holy will on earth and in heaven. Through Christ our Lord. Amen.
Item 2.1, acceptance of the minutes of the April 26, 2022 council meeting. Do we have a motion to accept?
I move.
I'll second.
The minutes were distributed in the council's packet. Tina, do we have any public comment?
No public comments.
Council discussion?
Question. District 1? Yes. District 2?
Yes.
District 3?
Yes.
District 4?
Yes.
District 5?
Yes.
District 6?
Yay.
At large?
Yay.
Motion carries.
Item 3.1, Mr. Danny Gallane, Director of Lafayette Public Library, support of the public library. Is Mr. Danny here? Okay, we'll move on. If he shows up, we can let him address the council. Item 3.2, Mr. Larry Miller with Miller Management, request for sign variance at 200 St. Nazaire Road. Do we have a motion to approve?
I move. Second.
Ben is our speaker tonight, but Mr. Larry Miller is here. So, Mr. Larry, if you'd also like to address the council, you're welcome to. Welcome.
So McDonald's is requesting a variance on the sign. It's on St. Nazaire. We have an existing sign that's already above. We have the overpass. There's a visibility issue. They are requesting to go the same elevation as the Kane sign, about 60 feet. It matches the other elevations. It would provide a little bit of visibility. And I think it's going to be a cost savings because they're going to use an existing sign from the other McDonald's, and this is their request.
Ben, Home Depot has a sign that's of similar height in that area.
Home
along
Depot
Highway
does
9.
a little further down. Cane's is directly across the street, and they would be pretty much the exact same height.
Do you know the footage that we're gonna be given a variance at? Like, what's the
So
limit?
they're asking for 60 foot. Our sign ordinance says 20 feet. Cane's is at like 61 to 63 feet. We requested they stay at the same elevation. So whatever elevation Cane's was, they couldn't go over that. And they would stay underneath that if that ordinance, if y'all would give the variance.
Mr. Miller, would you like to address the council? Welcome to our meeting.
Thank you. So, council, I appreciate it. As he mentioned, what we did about 2 weeks ago is we hired a local sign company to do what's called a sign flagging, where they brought out a crane at about 60, 70 feet and they hung a target. And for the next 2 hours, we actually drove up and down the street in every single direction. And we started at 50 feet and then went to 55 and went to 60. And it was at approximately 60 feet where we were able to get to above the buildings, above the Walmart coming back and the trees and everything from all the different directions. There's no visibility issues coming from the park, but you have the overpass coming from Albertson's Parkway, the overpass from Ambassador and all that. And once we set it and said, okay, that's the height, it came in right around 50 feet. 60 feet to where you'd see the sign. So I think we'd be in an economic disadvantage if we had to go lower. Now, as a business person, The lower the sign, the better from a financial investment standpoint, but I think we'd suffer an economic loss if we were too low and it was hidden in the trees. So what we're basically asking is, just to be the same height as canes, because that is almost the perfect height. So they must have hired someone and did some of the same things. So that's what we'd be asking for. And I do have a cut sheet of the site, the sign. And
We have it all supplied in the council's
There we go.
packet.
And as you mentioned, we just invested about $30,000 or $40,000 after the last hurricanes, and we put up a big brand new sign on the pole. So what we're hoping to do is just take that and relocate it across town at the new location.
Any questions for Mr. Miller? Thank you very much, Mr. Miller.
Thank you.
Tina, do we have public comment?
No public comments.
Council discussion?
Question?
District 2,
Yes.
District 3,
Yes.
District 4,
Yes.
District 5,
Yes.
District 6,
Yay.
at large,
Yay.
District 1,
Yes.
motion carries.
We appreciate your business being in Broussard, Mr. Miller. Item 4.1, resolution number 707-22, acceptance of the act of dedication of the streets and/or servitudes of Long Lene Estates LLC. Do we have a motion to approve?
I move. Second.
Mel Bertrand, our Director of Public Works, is our presenter tonight. Welcome, Mel.
Good evening, everyone. We did a walkthrough in Long Lane Estates. We had generated a punch list, which the contractor has addressed every item on the punch list. Everything looks good. I drove through it again today. Everything looks good from our standpoint.
Can you speak to the warranty period for the city, Mel?
The warranty, the owner actually has a warranty with the contractor, which is 1 year from, I think it's from.
Recordation of substantial completion.
Correct. So it's a 1 year warranty from that date.
And that date would be, they've crossed that date already? They've registered that date?
I don't think
Since it's between those two individuals and not the
Right,
city?
it's, the warranty is between the developer and the contractor. We're not a party to it. But it's from the date of substantial completion. And it, normally the way we do it is we'll record a certificate of substantial completion. That puts a definite date. But there's some other provisions in the state law that says if it's finished for 60 days or something, that establishes that date. There's a way to go back and figure that date out.
Sure, certainly since they're coming to us to accept the roads that they've crossed their timeline of substantial completion. Is that
Yeah.
accurate to assume?
Typically, once we will approve recordation of the final plat, that means all the improvements are in and are at a point that Mel's comfortable with. So that's generally, you can hold that date pretty strongly as the date of substantial completion. And then what we need to do is about 10 months from now, do a warranty inspection. And that's how Lafayette handles it. It's a good way to do it. About 10 months from now, we do another walkthrough. We come up with any items and then get in touch with the developer and say, look, you have cracks in the road or whatever, and then get them to fix it.
So that would be a responsibility of Public Works. You would have that logged in that 10-month period, Mel?
Correct, and that's typically what we do with any subdivision. We run through it almost on a daily basis when we're going through our meter installations and what have you. And the guys make a punch list on anything that they see that's out of the ordinary, and they get it to us, and we get it to the developer prior to that 1 year period.
That does make some sense. I believe that we've already had some applications to start pulling house permits, building permits for houses in that neighborhood.
Correct.
Yes.
I believe you're right.
And Walt, a few years ago, we upgraded our minimum requirements for building new roads and subdivision. I think we've added a couple of inches of salt cement.
Yeah, that's been going on probably for the last 10 years. We changed the requirements for open excavation under roads, where they have to backfill with fillcrete. We increased in the latest version of it, when y'all redid the subdivision regulations, we increased the base course requirement. We didn't do anything with asphalt. It's really, what we have found is if you take care of the foundation, the road generally works better. Adding asphalt generally doesn't help you enormously, and it's very expensive to do. Yeah, and the idea is that what we call the road surface that you roll on, we call that the wearing course. That's the shingle on the roof. And just like a house, the main thing that you want to do for the longevity of a road is to keep water from getting into that base course. So, but the strength of the road is the base, is the foundation of the road. So we increased the amount of the thickness of the base and kept the shingle the same. As long as the base is good, every few years we got to overlay or seal it or whatever.
If there's no further council discussion, we'll call for public comment, Tina.
No public comments.
Question.
District 3,
Yes.
District 4,
Yes.
District 5,
Yes.
District 6,
Yay.
at large,
Yay.
District 1,
Yes.
District 2,
Yes.
motion carries.
Item 4.2, resolution number 708-22, authorizing of La Nouvelle road improvements and approving the intergovernmental agreement with Lafayette Consolidated Government. Do we have a motion to approve?
I'll move.
Second.
I can give an explanation of this item. In the council's packet, you see a copy of the intergovernmental agreement, which would describe the estimated cost of the reconstruction and resurfacing of that road to be a total of $229,000. Also in that intergovernmental agreement, it'll describe the percentages of each governmental agency and their percentage ownership. 629 for the whole project. But that road, say again, what?
In the resolution, it says the estimated cost is $746. That's in the resolution. I think the intergovernmental agreement,
Is one without engineering and one is with engineering?
I think so. Yeah.
Gerald, can you?
I think that the resolution, when I prepared it, included the latest updated costs. You know, we've had some changes in costs in home construction. So the other number, the 629, was a while back, and the 724 is the latest estimate that we have for the project.
And the way Gerald crafted the intergovernmental agreement, it breaks everything down. Even though it does mention that total.
It is broken into
it's broken into
percentage.
percentages, so.
Okay, so we'll make that correction. It's the 729,000. The percentages,
746.
746, thank you. The percentages of the ownership of the road are 68% City of Broussard, 24% Lafayette City, 8% parish. So the payment for the reconstruction of the road would be paid by those three entities. We're the first to bring it in front of the council. President Guillory will have to do the same with his two councils to get it authorized, and it would be funded later. Broussard does have an agreement with the state to pay $200,000 to us for this road specifically, as part of a budgetary item that we worked out with them months ago. So our total will be reduced. We're getting some relief on our section. But we cannot execute. We can sign the document with council's approval, but until Lafayette goes through their motions, we would not be able to execute. And we would have to come back at another time for funding for this project.
And Lafayette wants us to go first, so they won't act on it till we do.
Walter, for future reference, who's gonna be responsible for the upkeep, repairs?
The way the law works is that we can't, and that's the reason for this intergovernmental agreement, and Gerald can correct my language if I'm wrong. You can only spend money that's collected in a taxing district within that taxing district. So we cannot, by state law, maintain Lafayette Parish Road, or we can't maintain, repair anything. So the way you do this is through intergovernmental agreement where they're paying their share. Going forward, they will have to maintain their share. Now, it may be that there'll be another intergovernmental agreement, we may agree to do it, and they'll reimburse us or something, you know, that happens all the time. But generally speaking, the only way we could do the whole road at once is they have to pay their share. We cannot. Is
So
that,
the-
did I say that right, Gerald?
Yeah, I think that's correct, and moreover, the agreement as drafted calls for a calculation at the end based upon, at the end based upon what money has been actually spent, on what portions of the roadway. So everybody's gonna pay their share.
The only way around that would be to accept ownership or give ownership of the road to another party. And that was talked about early on when this project, we were trying to put this repair project together. The parish had some chatter about maybe giving their 8% up, but that they kind of quickly turned away from that and started focusing on just contributing to the project. And that's how we ended up here where we are today. So we're just trying to move the needle on this project and hand them what they're asking us for.
Just one other comment, the engineering and administrative cost obviously is, you can't break that down by which part of the roadway, and that's gonna be shared proportionately at the end, and there's an agreement to that effect.
We went down this path years ago when we overlaid it with the intergovernment agreement with them. And if I recall, it's been several years, we had issues collecting from them on this project.
They did pay, Kenny, they did pay us. They did pay us.
Right, it just
Took
took
a
a
while,
long
but they
time.
paid us.
Yeah, I know
Okay.
we went through the process of the intergovernmental agreement. You're exactly right.
Should we have a separate maintenance agreement after this, Gerald? If they're gonna do 30%, 35% of the road, we do 60 plus, do we have to have an agreement with them maintaining your share, or we maintain our share?
I think we'll have to have some sort of, unless everyone does, each jurisdiction takes care of its own maintenance, we will have to have an intergovernmental agreement. If one person's gonna do it and get reimbursed, we'll have to have a separate agreement. This covers the construction, including the administrative costs. And what I put in here, and what seems agreeable so far, we haven't gotten final approval from them, is that every 30 days, we will provide to LCG with documentation evidencing the indirect costs, which is the engineering, and administrative costs, and that, they will reimburse us every 30 days. So if there's gonna be a problem, we're gonna know pretty quickly. And we also have a provision that if somebody objects, we have to have a meeting within 15 days, so this stuff doesn't drag on, so we can resolve it early on. So I think we have the mechanism to stay on top of the issue if there is some disagreement along the way. If there is, we'll deal with it at that time. But we tried to put something in here so that we can't just be put off. If there's an objection by either side, we meet in 15 days and we work this out.
But is there some language in there of how quickly they have to pay us their share if we're managing the project? I want to say it took a year, Tina? I mean, that's not right. We use our taxpayers' money to cover the cost of the road. It took them a year to pay us back.
The provision in here is 30 days. They pay within 30 days.
There's provisions in there.
Yes.
Okay.
Do we have public comment, Tina?
No public comment.
Any further council discussion?
I do. So Walter, you're saying the city of Broussard is gonna manage this project,
Yeah,
the whole project?
yeah, we're gonna, essentially, my understanding of what LCG is gonna do is they're gonna budget the money for this, and every month we're gonna send them a bill, and I'm gonna have to break down on each pay request what was done in which jurisdiction, and then they'll reimburse us based on that. Cause it changes in front of the park, they just reconstructed, they only wanna overlay. So we're gonna have to keep track of, we're gonna have to have an inspector on the job, and we're gonna have to keep track of where every ton of asphalt is laid, and we can do that, it's not a big deal. But each month I have to basically report to them what was done, and then we'll request payment for them, then they'll reimburse us. And the way they're talking about it is they're just gonna have a pot of money for that waiting for us as we go, is what I've been told. So this should be pretty clean.
Well, once the two councils in Lafayette budget the money, then that money would be in the administrative budget for the mayor president's office to pay as we
Correct.
send the bills.
Correct, I will send the bills to their public works department, and then they'll okay it, and then it's gotta go through their purchasing and so on and so forth to get a check back to us. And that takes a little bit of time, but I don't see the conversations I'm having, us waiting a year. I think it may take 60, 90 days for them to cut us a check, which is kind of their normal pace.
Walter, just to confirm, I don't see any cross-secting streets or anything. This is from 89 to Bonat?
Yes.
Correct, there we have a graph.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't even see it. Okay, I'm good.
Call for the question.
District 4,
Yes.
District 5,
Yes.
District 6,
Yay.
at large,
Yay.
District 1,
Yes.
District 2,
Yes.
District 3,
Yes.
motion carries.
Item 4.3, resolution number 709-22, appointments to fill 3 unexpired seats on the Broussard Economic Development Corporation Board. Do we have a motion to approve?
I'll move.
I see Mr. Laurent Grange is here tonight. Welcome, Ryan.
Hello. Yes, so we have 9 total positions with Broussard Economic Development. These are 3 unexpired terms. One of the things that the board has been looking for in our board members is the commitment to make sure that everyone is able to participate in this volunteer board. And we had 3 of our members that decided to resign, that they weren't able to make the commitment that we were looking for. As you know, we recently hosted a developer commercial realtor luncheon, which allowed our city to be highlighted among people that help people make decisions on where they're going to invest and build new businesses. Great way to highlight our community. We hosted a job fair recently in coordination with our Chamber of Commerce, which had great success. And of course, we continue to work on certified sites. We had 3 of them last year. We have 1 that will be certified later this year, which only casts a statewide and nationwide spotlight on the community of Broussard for companies that may want to invest. So we do have 3 positions that are unexpired that we're asking to fill. The individuals, we have Miss Claire Hebert-Marceau. She works with Skeeter Contractors in Broussard. She actually has an economic development background and is very eager to offer her expertise and assist us with additional initiatives. Mr. Anthony Taylor with Miller Management. Of course, they operate a business here in Broussard, and he's very engaged in many of the communities that they operate. And this is a way that they can become more engaged in the Broussard community. And Miss Helen Thibault works in real estate, which is another great skill set to have on the Economic Development Board as we work to certify sites and work with companies to develop in our area.
Ryan, just for future reference, what measures are you taking to put the word out there to recruit new members?
Yes, so actually this was something we did kind of have some communication go out primarily through networking at Broussard Chamber events and some of our local events that we were hosting. We actually had a lot of people approach us that, hey, if ever y'all get a spot, I would love to give back to my community. So all 3 of these individuals are very committed. They are very aware that we meet monthly and our board meets every month. So we're excited about the opportunity to have 9 engaged board members for the rest of the year. We do have to reappoint once a year. So usually we come to you guys in December to appoint for the next year. We have 3 positions that are 1-year appointments. So these would fill the unexpired 1-year appointments. We have 3 that are 2-year appointments, and then the last 3 are 3-year appointments. So in December, we'll be coming back to reappoint 1-year members and 3-year that would want to stay on the board at that point.
Any further council discussion for Ryan? Tina, do we have public comment?
No public comments.
Thank you very much, Ryan.
Question.
And we have a call for the question.
District five?
Yes.
District six?
Yay.
At large?
Yay.
District one? Yes. District two?
Yes.
District three?
Yes.
District four?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Item number 4.4, resolution number 710-22, authorizing the mayor to sign an agreement with BNSF for a permit to cross railroad tracks at Lake Talon Road. Do we have a motion to approve?
I move.
Second.
So, brief, an explanation on this item. Our city has been working with BNSF for a while now on the permit to be able to cross the railroad tracks at Lake Talon Road where where the PPE plant exists to 182. Been, working with President Cedars pretty closely on this. Broussard was in motion on this permit. Later, President Cedars got some capital funding from the state to improve the intersection there. So very expensive, large improvement that DOTD is authorizing for him. He's working with Fence-to-Maker to design that improvement, but this whole project is in two separate parts. We have recently been able to rework that contract and get BNSF's thumbs up on this thing to be able to authorize the crossing, to have a permit waiting for the road improvement to be ready to go. So we'll have the permit sort of waiting in a desk, ready to go for when President Cedars needs it. And what's unique about it is we've been able to point the expense of this crossing to President Cedars project, which is a DOTD $5 million road improvement here. And St. Martin Parish is in agreement. We've been working with them to make sure that all the wheels are turning in the right way and we don't step on each other's toes. We also feel fortunate that this particular crossing and this particular contract does not require us to give up an additional railroad crossing, which is pretty unique. So time is of the essence while we have this opportunity, in my opinion, that we just want to finish with this. And when St. Martin Parish is ready to launch their project, Broussard is in a good position to help them and give them what we can to be of assistance, like this permit.
We don't have to give up any crossings to get this one.
No, sir, in this current contract that we have, it's not required.
In the past, they were asking that.
That does seem to be a standard requirement of the railroad. Gerald?
We're also informed that there's a push now, backed by the Department of Transportation, to reduce substantially all of the crossings between Lafayette and maybe as far as Generate in that area. And so this is not something they're pushing for us to give up any crossings. So from that standpoint, we I think are avoiding what might otherwise be a problem in terms of giving up crossings, if we can get this signed now.
Tina, do we have public comment?
No public comments.
Council discussion?
Question.
District six?
Yay.
At large?
Yay.
District one?
Yes.
District two?
Yes.
District three?
Yes.
District four?
Yes.
District five?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Ordinances for adoption. Ordinance number 22-729, an ordinance amending the Code of Ordinances to amend Chapter 58 and to provide relative camping on public property. Do we have a motion to adopt?
I'll move.
A second.
Gerald, we have you as a presenter tonight. This is the second time that this item will be in front of the council.
That's correct. We went through it last time. It's simply an ordinance to provide a method or an additional tool to protect public property and to regulate camping on public property. If there are any questions, I can answer it, but I think it's fairly straightforward.
Tina, do we have public comment?
No public comments.
Council discussion?
At large?
Yay.
District one?
Yes.
District two?
Yes.
District three?
Yes.
District four?
Yes.
District five?
Yes.
District six?
Yay.
Motion carries.
Item 5.2, ordinance number 22-730, an ordinance amending the zoning ordinance of the city of Broussard to adopt map F6 for property located at 901, 905, and 913 Garber to rezone it from light industrial to single-family residential. Do we have a motion to adopt?
I make a motion.
I'll second.
Again, this is the second time this item is in front of the council. Rezoning of a piece of property, to a single-family residential. Gerald, would you like to add anything?
I have nothing to add. I think this was discussed last time, and I think that, the intention is to develop these properties as single-family residential, and we need to change it from light industrial to single-family residential to facilitate that.
Tina, do we have any public comment?
No public comments.
Council discussion?
Question?
District 1? Yes. District 2?
Yes.
District 3?
Yes.
District 4?
Yes.
District 5?
Yes.
District 6?
Yay.
At large?
Yay.
Motion carries.
Item 5.3, ordinance number 22-732, an ordinance creating the City of Broussard Old Town Special Overlay District of the City of Broussard. Do we have a motion to adopt?
I move.
Second.
This item is appearing in front of council for a second time. Walter did some work to do some clarity on this item, designating, what was pertaining to commercial. And, based on that, it also, speaks to what's, for residential use, rules that would apply. Tina, do we have any public comment on this item?
No public comment.
Do we have council discussion?
I have, something to say. I'd like to, make a motion to amend this ordinance to put in some language that would, require if anybody splits a single lot into multiple lots and puts single family but multiple houses on there, that it will require the same amount of parking as multifamily dwellings. Which would just bring the parking restrictions to a regular house if they split a lot into multiple lots. Can we do that? Can you get us some language in
We
there?
can do that. I think it would be appropriate to, I tried to draft some language out when I was informed of this before the meeting, because I think to adopt the ordinance, you should be aware of the exact language that's going to be in the regulation. So my thought would be, in section 12, which begins on page 5 of the regulations, the last subparagraph of section 12 is F, and I would add a paragraph G, which would read, should any currently existing single lot be subdivided into 2 or more lots, each subdivided lot shall be required to provide for 4 on-site parking spaces. And that should be currently existing single residential lot. Should any such lot be subdivided into 2 or more lots, each subdivided lot shall be required to provide for 4 on-site parking spaces.
Do you know of any precedents that's been set in neighboring municipalities that do that?
I have no. I think you're creating a district here, and I'm not sure of any precedent that would apply. What we're saying here is that if you have one large lot and someone breaks it up to put 2 single-family homes, each one will have to meet the single-family on-site parking requirements. That's the intent of the language.
And Jesse, the kind of the reasoning behind that is in a modern subdivision, the garage is set back from the road 20 feet. And that's intentional. Because you can park 2 cars inside you can park 2 cars in the garage and then 2 cars on the driveway without hanging out into the street. So, and even in the more modern subdivisions, you'll see people parking on the street occasionally. But the more I thought about this, when you do it in this kind of, this part of the city of Broussard, you have narrow streets, most of them are open ditch. So a lot of times there's not an opportunity, where do you park people? The way it currently stands is two parking spots per unit. But if you start chopping these lots up and increasing the density in the old part of town, where do you park people? We just don't have, so it's about allowing additional space to get parking off the street. And that's what we're trying to do here.
How often does that happen, that we have to have this, that we need this particular overlay district to proceed with parking issues? I mean, I passed up and down the road a few times and in the last few weeks just to see what y'all were talking about.
Well,
I know the roads are narrow, but, I mean,
the
again,
most famous example, it would be the was it the Victorian? I think that all kind of happened before you, where they took a house, they turned it into that's what kind of led up to a lot of this. Turned it into a business, and then they had people couldn't get in and out of their houses. So that was kind of where some of this came from. And parking in the older part of town is an issue. I mean, that's something we've been looking at since Ray's been mayor, is looking for opportunities to park people. Everything's so crowded up. So if you go into the old part of town that have narrow streets to begin with, and open ditches where it's hard to park on the shoulder, in a curb and gutter subdivision, they just kind of park. You have wider streets, you have more places to park. I think it was just kind of a natural evolution from that. And we are starting to see in the old part of town a lot of interest in doing things, different types of activities. So, David asked that we take, David asked that we create this special overlay district, which is modeled after Main Street. But remember this about Main Street, and that's the key difference between Main Street and Old Town. Main Street, if you go through the Envision Broussard book, includes a lot of parking because it's going to be a little bit more commercial. Essentially, what we're trying to do here is, if somebody wants to do something, and we want people to come and do development in the old part of town, that we provide for parking and these other things so it doesn't interfere with the people that already live there. And in my mind, Jeff, it's kind of like we're creating a restrictive covenants for the old part of town. Not exactly, but that's kind of what we're doing. In all these subdivisions, kind of the modern standard is, you can't park in the street. They'll have it written in the covenants for more than X hours a day, and you can't have a 18-wheeler parked on the road and all that type of thing. So it's just to kind of give a little bit of an even keel here for the people that live in the old part of town that developed before there was such a thing as restrictive covenants, or before they were commonly applied.
have we had any issues with police going, problems that were causing us to do this? I mean, like I said, I pass up and down the roads. There's people park. I live in subdivision I live in. We have cars parked, on the side of the road. Again, we're government telling people what to do with their own property. I just don't think it's right. I mean,
Also, when you built your house, you had restrictions, and didn't you?
No, they give you, but what I'm getting at is, they didn't tell me what to do with my house. I built my house to code and I agreed to do that. We're sitting here now telling people that have houses that if somebody buys, if I go buy some land, so you tell them if I go, and y'all just said y'all wanna bring people, business into town, but you're telling them we gotta stump on them everything they do. So I'm asking, what other issues we have that that's bringing this old district to have it rezoned? Okay, the old infrastructure, then we spent $2.4 million on phase one. If y'all so worried about old infrastructure, why didn't we focus on old infrastructure day one?
and start spending money here. No, no, we put a road that broke, we fixed it. If y'all so worried about old infrastructure, why didn't we spend our money on old infrastructure? We did this middle of downtown, move it. We put one pipe, Saint Cecilia, crossing Saint Cecilia, because we had to. Again, what's bringing up, making us have to put another
Yeah, well-
overlay district on top of overlay district?
Yeah, well, St. Cecilia is, you comparing apples and oranges. We replaced a structure under the road that was probably over 100 years old. We were gonna lose
And
the
we're
road.
using that same excuse, that's why we don't, the system can't handle, that's why y'all don't wanna subdivide.
Well, but Jeff, it's not just, drainage is one thing, water's another, sewer's another.
So if
The
I buy
width
a
of
lot,
the size of the road,
fine.
I mean, a standard modern road is 27 feet, back of curb to back of curb. Right now, most of these streets are under 20 feet total width. The turnout radiuses on these streets were designed for horse and buggy, and they're probably 10, 12 feet. Modern standards, 25 feet. So, prime example, when we detoured people down Jefferson during the St. Cecilia crossing, in my Jeep, it was hard for me to make the turn if somebody was stopped on Jefferson. If you're in bigger than a Jeep, and a Jeep's about as maneuverable as it gets, we dealing with a special circumstance in the older part because it was done so long ago. And we're just trying to mitigate if somebody comes in and wants to do something that's real dense or whatever, that we're kind of taking care of our business where the developer knows upfront, well, wait, I gotta deal with these issues coming forward.
And I understand, I guess
Yeah.
the question is, in the old district, what's out there that's gonna grab a developer to come in and say, hey, I'm gonna build this and create this
Well, we're starting,
overlay?
we're starting to see that more and more. We're starting to see where people are buying houses and fixing them up. I think if Main Street's a successful project, you're gonna see a lot of people kind of migrating to some of these old houses and turning them into shops or whatever. Famous example of that is Magazine Street in New Orleans. All those old houses, those shotguns along Magazine, are jewelry shops and restaurants and all kinds of things. But when you invite all that in, you also have some other issues that you need to consider. Where do you park them? When somebody takes an old Victorian house and turns it into a party venue, where do you park people during the party? That wasn't considered back then, and it was a big mess that the older council that we had, I don't know how many council meetings dealing with that. We're trying to get a little bit ahead of that.
With people parking on the side of the road, it made it extremely, almost impossible for emergency personnel to get through when they had a big function. So that's another, that was another one of my concerns when this is being brought up, with the whole town. Because the streets are smaller, the lots are smaller, I mean, yeah, does it happen every day that the streets are blocked? No, but it's gonna be that one time that it's gonna cause somebody.
And remember that, I'll never forget this. The way this works is just like Main Street overlay. Whatever they're gonna do is gonna go to the planning commission. And the mayor and I talk about this a lot. In my mind, a lot of these regulations are not to be a policeman. I don't wanna be a policeman. What I wanna do is start a conversation, because 9.9 times out of 10, when we sit down with a developer, we get to a place we can both live with. It starts it's more to start a conversation about, all right, what do you want to do? And okay, well, how are you going to handle this? How are you going to handle that? We generally are very successful in getting to a point that everybody's happy. If they go to the planning commission and they're not happy, they come to y'all. So they always have they can go up the steps and get relief if they think the administration or we're bearing down on them too hard. They have two places to go, the planning commission and then finally the council.
What Dave is proposing is worst case scenario, adding 2 more parking spots per house, correct? That's the worst case scenario. If a developer, right, and if a developer can't afford to do that, he shouldn't be in the development business. I mean, you're not asking for a whole lot. If your truck and my truck are passing on those streets, we're gonna hit, our rearview mirrors are gonna hit. I promise you, my truck and your truck will not fit on the old part of town. Like Walter said, it was made for horse and buggy. It's not made for 3/4 ton trucks.
I understand, that's why I'm getting at.
And that's what we're trying to do, Jeff, we're trying to prevent from problems from happening.
Who's gonna, with that known, what developers gonna come and try to build more stuff on these small lots?
If you don't have the footprint, then he has to go somewhere else in Broussard.
Well, and Jeff, honestly, that was and this is a conversation David and I had early on in this. I said, if we're too restrictive, nobody comes here and Old Town falls apart. If we're not restrictive enough, we invite a bunch of problems that we can't deal with. So what we're trying to do is find a happy medium. And I'll tell you right now, is this gonna be amended by this council or another council down the road? Absolutely. We're doing the best we can, but we got somewhere to start. And, y'all have changed, we changed several things along the way. And that has nothing to do with this, but one of the requirements we kept running into was people building a foot above the road. People kept having to come to waivers. Y'all agreed to let Mel and I make a judgment call. We're constantly tweaking these things, and I don't think we're getting more restrictive. I think we're trying to refine it and get it smooth, where a developer comes in, we don't have an answer. We're fumbling for an answer on something we know is gonna be a problem. That's what we're trying to do, is get the developer in here to have that conversation and say, look, if you do this, this is what we see. Can you work with us? That's really, in my mind, what I'm trying to do here. It's not to regulate people to death and shut them. I'm not into that. We want people to come.
So the overlay district we currently have, that we all agreed upon, Main Street, how, this new, we're taking in the old part of Broussard, which would be behind, the church and all that, on this side of the church, by the Baptist church.
Angels area across the tracks, Mr. Michael's area, what you would think of as the old part of town.
Almost.
There's a map
almost
in the.
To Louise.
Getting back to that building a foot above the road. I've seen pictures of Morgan Street taken right around the Baptist church, where Morgan Street was a gravel dirt road, and it was this much lower than the property on the side of it. Now, all that property on the side of it is that much lower than the road. That's how, through the years of gravel, blacktop, pea gravel, pile it on another load. The pictures was, I looked at it and I said, I didn't recognize it. It would look like a gully. It was this deep.
Well,
The property looked like it was on a hill.
Yeah, I didn't really want to
it's
get
just
into
the
a
opposite.
discussion about that. My point is, we're constantly tweaking these things because we have things from the administration side. We keep running into problems, and then we'll come to y'all and say, hey, we need to change the rules a little bit. Honestly, to make it a little easier for people to move forward.
Well, I was just trying to make a point that some of these houses that are built near Jefferson Street, that are little, about my age or maybe a little younger, were built when they were way above the road. And now the road is with them, or maybe in some places even higher than their slab. I know two houses that stuck the cement truck in the window and poured 4 inches of cement inside the house. That's how bad the situation is right now. I personally got some property that the water runs so hard, it washed the mortar out of the brick. I'll be glad to show anybody whenever they want to see it. But I thought of this, and Gerald could help me put it together, got the idea. It was to save property that's there already.
So in other words, if you were doing a brand new development right now, we have a stormwater ordinance, we have all kind of things that we can do to mitigate some of the impacts. if you're doing something in the old part of town, where are you gonna put a pond? Where are you gonna do all these different things? There's just not enough room. So we're trying to custom fit something that we have some tools to deal with some of the new growth we're seeing in the old part of town.
Walter, just for clarity's sake, could you walk through a couple of facts, just make sure, and if I get them wrong, correct me.
Sure.
The overlay district that we're talking about, y'all describe the area that it would include. If a person buys an existing property, existing house, paints it, beautifies it, all of that, none of this applies to them.
If it's residential use, you're an existing structure.
Even if it's
you're not
business
involved.
use, they're in an existing structure doing a same or similar business, no additional rules apply to them. But if it's an empty lot, or if the structure is torn down and if they produce a structure that's the same footprint, they're exempt. But if they produce a structure of a greater footprint,
That's correct.
then this starts kicking in.
Because if you fill up the whole lot with concrete, it has drainage implications.
Right. So I'll give a couple of examples. We have a business called Kip and King that exists on Morgan, and next to them there's another business. I can't remember their names, but they are in older homes. They went in there, they painted them, they fixed them up. They're existing in there. They're exempt. They went in, they just made it nicer. They're using the building as it was. They didn't increase footprint. Those they would have no additional requirements. But on that same lot, if that building had been torn down or subdivided, or a bigger building would have been put on it, then the city is starting to get into, you need to add a few parking spots. Those kind of things. We would start applying these rules to them. Correct? And at any time, when that starts kicking in, our zoning and planning commission, that, when they come to the zoning planning, this stuff is reviewed with them. If they don't like one of the rules and they want a variance on it, they come to this council and ask for it. And I think by Mr. Larry Miller's presence here tonight, it's not all that difficult to get a variance as long as it's reasonable and logical and within reason. And we've done some of that stuff before. We had a person build a house on Morgan, I can remember about a year or so ago, and the dirt was this high because the standard rules in Broussard say a foot above the road, but it did not make sense in that application. I can't remember the gentleman's name, but he came to the council and he's, I'm 2 feet above my neighbor, and it's obtrusive, and the council waived it. And traditionally, our council has been very willing to do that.
And in the last 3 years, how many waiver requests have you gotten where the planning commission denied something, or Mel or I denied something and they came to y'all for waiver? How many? I can tell you, 0. Because we work with people. And that, the problem is, in a lot of jurisdictions, is they have a ton of rules that nobody understands, and then an unwillingness to work with people. The mayor over here and the council over here speaks with a very clear voice. You want us to work with people. And that's what like I said, my sidekick right here, or I'm his sidekick, we always are able to find some happy ground. That's just been the experience so far.
Yeah, I would venture to say that Broussard is one of the easiest jurisdictions to work with. Any developer will tell you that. We try to work with people. We don't want to be restrictive in any way, but there are some circumstances that you have to mitigate. Nothing works 100% of the time.
You were right about your point about additional parking. That came up in the charrette, in the public meetings we had. That was one of the things that was identified. The city has kind of considered that the whole way through the planning of downtown Broussard as we kind of travel this path. We will have to. If business is going to come to downtown Broussard, there is just not enough room. We have for example, Gerard's Cleaners has no parking at all, none. And we have to help supplement that because there's no other choice. If we apply the rules that the state government, is putting upon us now, the fire marshal rules of so many parking spots, you could never operate that business. So we accept it, but we have to supply some help to businesses and people in downtown Broussard.
And what we're doing here is not unique to Broussard. One of my favorite places on earth is a place called Asheville, North Carolina. And one of the most successful downtown revitalizations you've ever seen. Fun city, beautiful, lot of things to do, but they struggle with parking. And a lot of times you're having to go, 2 or 3 blocks off of the main drag to find a parking lot. They have parking lots everywhere. That, if we're successful here, that's gonna be an issue. I think with the Envision Broussard and things like this, we're attempting to kind of get ahead of that. Where if what we're trying to do with Main Street and this area, the old part of town is successful, we're a little bit ahead of the problem. Not like some of these other cities that they were wildly successful, but they forgot to think about parking. So, there's some nice places to go in the United States that did this, what we're doing, and that's always an issue. Not all of them have the drainage issues we have. We get a lot of rain, but that's kind of the thinking behind it.
Gerald, I'm not sure procedurally, David made a request, but that request has to be, how do we handle that procedurally?
I think that the motion to amend needs to be offered. And there has to be a vote on whether or not to amend the ordinance as previously submitted. And then if the amendment pass, or whether or not it passed, then you vote on the ordinance itself, either as amended or as originally written. So I think the first step is to
So is
consider his
David's,
amendment and whether or not to approve the amendment.
is David's, request for that change a motion for that change?
Well, I think he could reword it as a motion to amend.
He did.
Made a motion to amend, so it's amended, motion has been made to amend. And you need a second. And then we've had a lot of discussion, and then the council will vote on whether or not to amend the ordinance as originally adopted.
So on the floor, we have a motion for amendment and a second. We would need a call for the question.
Question.
District 2,
Yes.
District 3,
Yes.
District 4,
Yes.
District 5,
Yes.
District 6,
Yay.
at large,
Yay.
District 1,
Yes.
motion carries.
Are there any additional amendments by the council? Is there any public comment, Tina?
No public comment.
Question.
District 3,
Yes.
District 4,
Yes.
District 5,
Yes.
District 6,
Yay.
at large,
Yay.
District 1,
Yes.
District 2. Motion carries.
Thank you all for coming tonight. Broussard is overlaying the main street between, St. DePorce and Albertsons Parkway, so please excuse the progress there. Hope you have a wonderful night. Please drive safely. Good night.